Hey Alex, I really appreciate you taking the time to do this interview with me, and I'm really excited to share your experience with other people interested in the program.
Yeah, glad to be here, Troy. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, so if you just want to start by sharing a little bit about your background, what's your previous work experience and education look like?
Okay. So I graduated from a liberal arts college called St. Olaf College back in 2007 with a philosophy and economics major.
Hmm.
I actually got into chess coaching actually immediately after school and worked as a private tutor pretty consistently actually since graduating. I actually, at one point, I think about 3 or 4 years after my graduation from St. Olaf, got a real estate license and worked in real estate as well. Split my time pretty much 50-50 between real estate and working as a private math tutor and chess coach. So I had to relocate due to a family issue actually this past year and arrived on in Chattanooga at the end of October. And I started to apply for jobs, and I applied for quite a few I thought I'd be a very good fit for actually. And
Hmm.
I think I submitted probably about, I would say 25 to 35 resumes and just was not getting a hit for what I wanted. It's kind of
Yeah.
like getting those like phone calls, like, I have this opportunity for you. And then it's like some sort of like either pyramid scheme or like insurance company I want to work for, some sort of like weird selling job. And it's just like, like something's kind of like, I was just like, something is not quite right here. Like something isn't lining up with my skill set or what my past experience has been. So
Hmm.
my brother actually has always been influenced me to get into software sales. So I looked up sales development representative and I found course groups on Career Builder actually.
Awesome.
So I decided to do a little bit of research into the program and to see if it kind of be something that would help me kind of take that next step and transition with all my sales experience and education experience into a software sales position. And so I called you up and I think we talked for probably about 20 minutes. And I think
Hmm.
it's just kind of like for $500 for what he's telling me about these guaranteed internships. It sounds like the program's pretty legitimate. It's like, might as well chance it. Like, what's it going to be? Like, it's like I'm already not finding a job. It's like I can do, like I have a little bit of some savings set aside for the $500, fortunately. So I jumped in the program, started taking kind of a look at things, realized it was pretty legitimate, and I think I was done in like 20 days, and probably about 2.5 weeks after that, maybe 3 weeks after that, I had a full time job.
Yeah. So, I mean, what were your expectations going into the program? Were you really skeptical and just like, hey, it's only $500. I'll see what happens, or were you really expecting it to work out?
I think the thing that probably most impressed me was actually you actually seem to have a very sort of personal relationship with your students, and we're just kind of there to
Hmm.
like really help them through the program. And it's kind of like, he seems like he's invested in his students doing well. That really impressed me. And then I like the fact too that the program did involve some book reading as well. And so I had read on the books previously, but realized that that would be kind of a legitimate part of the program. And the more that I did of the program, I think the more impressed that I became with it, realizing just how well it was laid out and really kind of like the core principles that you touched on that I realized would be applicable to the industry. And I
Hmm.
talked with my brother, and he was also very impressed with the different things that the course provided as well, where it's like, yeah, here's what you need to know to just succeed here. And so the more I went along, and especially being able to do some of the cold call practice and things like that in the Discord chat, I thought were extremely valuable.
Awesome, awesome. And what were some of your biggest concerns going into the program that you think some other students might be worried about?
I think just like, is this legitimate? Probably went away very quickly, but then it was also like, is this going to really help me get a job?
Yeah.
And I think that my experience is probably a little bit unique because of my background in economics and working in real estate sales that I was able to leverage into a full-time position. But I
Hmm.
realized as well that after talking to some of the other employer companies that you're working with that are hiring some of these, I guess, internship positions,
Hmm.
they're all very legitimate companies. They're all, I think, very invested in these SDRs growing as well and really performing well. They're also understanding that some people may go through the internship and realize like, oh, I want to be an analyst or something else. But it seems like they still have the doors to open those other positions at those firms as well if they see talented individuals. So I think it's really kind of a good middle ground if somebody's a little bit anxious about getting into full-time sales that wants a little bit more experience. It sounds like these companies are there to kind of do the training with them, help them gain those skill sets and give them some exposure to that as well to realize like this is or is not for them, but still giving them some very valuable experience that they like really no matter what, if they decide to move out of the software sales space, I think it'll be something very good for them to add on their resumes.
For sure. So you're saying that even if someone isn't certain that they want to work in software sales, still going through the course, testing it out in an internship, at least they can get a successful internship under their belt and leverage that experience to get a job either at their current company in a different role or leverage it to get a different position at another company.
Yeah, exactly. And the thing is that like I think a lot of people, like in my experience, because I was self-employed for so long as well, that really like you don't have that experience to put on your resume. I think that was one of the biggest things holding me back. Is it's like you get some experience in a legitimate company, doing a position that other firms are aware of. It's like everybody understands what the sales development representative is. Having that title under your sort of like hats that you've worn before in any other industry, I think will serve positive for somebody. And especially too that some of these firms that you've been working with are really creating some very interesting technologies that I think will become big in the marketplace. So having that experience and be able to come in to like another role either in that company or another company that sort of has a similar fit and be able to like say like I have this knowledge what this product does and what these services are, what it's going to look like for the future will be very valuable for them as well.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm curious to learn a little bit more about your experience going through the course and learning the material. So you said you finished in about 20 days. I mean, would you say the material is confusing, or is there any reason any other students wouldn't be able to learn it?
No, honestly, there's nothing that's difficult about the material at all whatsoever. I think honestly the hardest thing about being a sales development representative is being able to just hit your expected quotas each and every day. I think a lot of people will just be either a little bit nervous about having to talk to that many people on the phone and things like that, but it's just like I think that if people can understand the art of setting with good cadence and automatic emails and things like that, that'll make their life a lot easier. Most SDR manager I talk to, they only expect 8 hours a day. So although you might have like 75 phone calls and 100 emails, it is a doable number. And so I think that that might make people a little bit nervous going in. But I think in terms of the idea, it's like understanding the actual material. I don't think that any of it's too far-fetched or very complicated. And I think the other thing that some students need to understand as well is that there'll always be things you don't know going in. It's like everybody might have a different software you've never used before. There might be a little bit of a variable to that equation. You really hit on that in the training, and it was something I don't think I've invested in or believed enough. And like I started doing some interviews, and I was like, I can't learn every software in the sun these companies are going to use ahead of time. So just saying like, yeah, I can understand how these softwares work. I can learn some of this stuff. And like, honestly, like, just kind of like as a little bit of a note for everybody, there's a free LinkedIn membership for 1 month that you can do to like, oh, I want to learn how to do HubSpot. Or I want to learn sales and Navigator. You can do that just for the free month, cancel your card after that, but get that underneath your belt. So like the next job you work at, if they have a software you're unfamiliar with, you can just do that for that month free and then have it done.
For sure, for sure. So you're able to go through this course in about 20 days, and then you started interviewing with companies. So how about you share with us your experience interviewing with these employers and ultimately the job you decided to take?
So it was actually, I will say also, I should probably give a little bit of I was not working at that point in time. I was doing the course cruise as well. That's what I was able to do in 20 days. So yeah. I had a little bit of a luxury. So don't think that like I'm that quick or that smart to get this all done like that quickly. So I was able to, because the books were, I wouldn't say necessarily super intense, but like I had to read 3 books and do all the course material. So like I wouldn't say that every student should expect to be done in 20 days. But the nice thing about this as well, which I think is also people should understand, is that because it's kind of a go at your own pace as well, that the timeline's not so cutthroat that like, oh, hey, something comes up for 1 week. You don't necessarily fall a week behind and then get overwhelmed by the course material as well. You can kind of take it at your own pace. And like the things that I'd advise people to finish quickly, because like the job opportunities happen quickly after that. But it's nice that like, oh, if I wasn't feeling well this week, or like, oh, I suddenly had a busy week at work, or something else came up, it's self-paced, so you can take a little bit longer to get the course done. So that's also another benefit.
Yeah, for sure. And we have students who finish in 20 days or 3 months or anywhere in between. So yeah, really across the board. So then you started interviewing with employers, and tell us what that experience was like, and then the company you decided to go with.
So that experience was actually, I think it went pretty well. I think I had a pretty good idea of what to expect going in. I actually myself just kind of like wrote down a list of like, where are like my weaknesses in the interviews, where are my strengths. I was actually doing a pretty good job myself of preparing these things, which I think was actually a huge advantage.
Yeah.
I've had a couple of interviews in the past that I had one or two that were just brutal. And I realized it's like, what do I do now to make myself so I'm not in that position ever again? So understanding that, I think, gave me an advantage going in. But the other thing is that course careers gave me enough knowledge to kind of put the interviewer, kind of put the ball back in their court every once in a while to say like, hey, no, I have a question for you. And I thought that was a very good way of demonstrating my value to these employers that I knew what it meant to be an SDR because I had such a good, extensive list of questions prepared. And that is actually something that you do learn in the course careers material that I thought was very good as well. See, it's like, what question you're going to ask these employers? And I thought that was a very good way of sort of leveraging or showing my expertise and showing what I learned about that position at other employers that I think almost impressed them the most. Is the fact that I came prepared with questions. And I mean, the majority of those questions came from the course careers material. So I have to thank you for that, Troy, honestly.
Yeah, no problem. Awesome. And so tell us a little bit more about your current position now.
So I will be starting at Dun & Bradstreet March 7th. Mm-hmm. And actually, the beauty of this position too is that, so this is something else I will warn everybody about as well, is that, so make sure you're very much doing your homework about your position before you begin, because not all SDR roles are the same. And I say that saying that some you'll be like, all right, they get like a lot of outbound calls, which you're calling new leads, new prospects every single day. Mm-hmm. Some have a little bit of a balance. You're getting some like outbound cold calls, some from the market, which would be like an inbound lead. Some are all inbound leads, which is great too. Well, this position is actually essentially cross-selling and upselling to existing accounts. And the thing is that these phone calls and these conversations I'll be having with the clients I'll be working with are a little bit longer format than the typical prospecting conversation as well, which means they're a little bit more intellectually stimulating. There's a little bit more to go into the depth and things like that. So I'd like to kind of warn everybody that there are different levels of the conversation you'll have as an SDR. And there's different sort of techniques, different skills that you'll bring in the industry as well. So don't be thinking that all SDR roles are the same, but also make sure you're very clear as to what those expectations are, even before you have that interview. So I'd advise you to look to sort of the person you're talking to, see what their SDR team specializes in and things like that, because some SDR teams do one thing, some SDR teams do another, and they're really going to kind of want to know if you have the skills to do those specific things, and then the expectations for those roles will be different as well. So I'd advise you to make sure that you're doing a very good job of researching people you're talking to before the interview takes place, because that'll make sure you're in the right position to understand what's expected of you in those roles.
For sure, for sure. And is this position fully remote?
Yes, which is also super important for me because I just relocated and I had a horrible move getting down here, and I don't want to move probably ever again. If I do, it's going to be like maybe 10 miles from where I live right now. But the other thing is that I applied for some companies actually, and then they decided to change. Like it was like literally, I applied for one position, didn't get that position, went to shoot for an SDR position I thought I would get, and that same week they decided to do a hybrid model back to the office. So I couldn't do that anymore. And then the other position, a very similar company, I was super excited. They looked at my resume, looked at my real estate experience, and said, hey, we would just make it an account executive from the get-go. And I was super happy to do that. Mm-hmm. And then 3 or 4 minutes into the interview, the person said, oh, we don't hire you from Tennessee. So I was just like, and so I was very adamant about doing remote work, but remote work in all 50 states. Just making sure that was something I knew I could accomplish from kind of the get-go, since I had my heart broken or not. I couldn't take a gig part through the interview, so that was important to me. I mean, like, would I like to work at a company trying to do it? Yeah, sure, fine, but like, I like the remote work because it just, not that I'm opposed to doing a hybrid or really the job and things like that, but it's nice to be able to just, I can walk my dog in the middle of the day. It's all remote, so there's no expectation of going to the office. Or like a hybrid, they might switch to the back of the office model, so, I like working from home. I don't really have an issue of, the focus on work tasks, fortunately. So I'm just good at getting out, getting my things done. So I think it's just a good fit for me. And I've just been honestly working in my home office for the past 3 or 4 years as it is anyways.
Yeah, for sure. And how excited are you to get started here in, what is it, like a week or two now?
I mean, if I could start today, I would.
Yeah.
I'm actually really, just because it was interesting, because the person that I interviewed with, and it took me, and this is what I said before about the importance of doing research about the roles, is it took me about 2/3 of the way through the interview to really like start seriously inquiring about what he thought was so mentally engaging about this role.
Mm-hmm.
Like, dude, you're an SDR team leader. Like, how can this be at all mentally stimulating? And he said, he goes, no, we actually talk to some very interesting executives every single day. He said, I learned a lot about business from these people. And then kind of like a light bulb went off in my head of like, oh, wow, I will be talking to some like major players each and every day. They'll every day be able to teach me something new about business. So I would say that part of the thing, I think that this is true. It's like, you know, part of it's a numbers game. That's true. But I think that if you can find, and when you're an SDR, you're prospecting, things like that, somebody can teach you something during your day, that's very beneficial. And I think that as well, that like if they can teach you something and you can learn a lesson from that, and then let them know how much they've taught you as well, they will appreciate you to listen to them as well. And that also might help kind of like lead to them eventually working with your company or working with you as like an individual salesperson, things like that. So I say it's probably stay mindful of that. And really do try to take this as an educational opportunity. Really learn as much as you can, no matter where you're at. Understand the software as best as you can. Understand the people you're working with as best as you can. And just really, as much as it's a number game and things like that, really try to take every day like an educational challenge. Try to like just take I guess, list of what you can learn that day and do the best with what you can.
Definitely. And would you be able to share like a range of how much you're expected to make, if possible?
Oh, for income?
Yeah.
Well, so I mean, I've interviewed with quite a few companies, so I can give a pretty wide array of numbers. But I'll say that, so the first thing we should be aware of is ask how many of the prospects are meeting their quotas.
Mm-hmm.
People are not meeting their quotas, and they're promising you like, oh yeah, if you get 100% commission, you get $50,000 a year, and you get 50% of hitting their quota, you're not going to make that $50,000 a year. Hate to break it to you. It's just that's the reality of it.
Yeah.
So I think that key piece is asking how many people are making their quota. That's the biggest one, because you'll hear everything from, I've heard commissions maxed out at $20,000. I'm in an interesting situation because I have what's called 100% OTV, and then they cap it, but they cap it if you go 200%. Mm-hmm. So that can net me anywhere. So like I think that like the average person where I'm working is probably making anywhere between 60 to 90K. I don't know how many people are going 100. I should have gotten more documented evidence about that. And I had some positions say that like, oh, you can make like $135,000 to $155,000 per year. But I don't know. You have to be very careful, because it's like, well, I can, or like the people who are actually making this amount of money, like what are your statistics here? Like these are like your SDRs that have been doing this for 5 to 7 years, that have like a lot of connections, or getting a lot of referrals and things like that. So
yeah.
I would say very careful in terms of like asking the right questions about who's meeting quota and those different things. I think that that's like really a big thing about it, because it's like, you know, like the only thing that I'm guaranteed is my salary, and even that's only guaranteed by my job well enough and my quotas.
Yeah.
So really the commission is really like kind of like a little bit up to me. That really is also kind of, you know, due to the market and how the market shifts based on like recession, depression, economic boom, and things like that. That does make a salesperson's job easier and things like that. But I'd say that like if you're interviewing, I'd say ask them who are making their quotas. If it's a majority of the people, that's probably a pretty good sign and things like that. So it's a pretty reliable indicator for what you're getting for your commission.
Mm-hmm. And to wrap up this interview, I know there's quite a few people who are probably comparing us to other boot camps who are often more expensive. Is there any recommendations you would give to them?
I would say that be very wary of the overpromise and underdeliver, because I think that's what a lot of these boot camps offer. I think that some of these boot camps are very good in terms of the idea. It's like if you really if you didn't have a lot of things figured out, they might help a lot. But at the same time, from what my experience is, it seems like those students get left behind, kind of left to the wolves. So it's like there are those that really could come in, that could really do need a hand up, but I don't think that hand up is there for them necessarily. I would say that it seems to me that in my experience, and I've taken some more training camps, just trust me on this, it seems like the quality of service is kind of like across the board, equal for everybody, which is, in my opinion, a little bit lower than what they're promising. But it's also like, in my opinion, it's like, I would really have no problem me being as independent of learner as I am. It's like, hey, we're gonna give you a little less help because you need a little less help. I'm like, you know what? Fine by me. But like, I kind of have an issue with the fact that like, kids in my courses are turning to me and asking me like, hey, how have you done this? Or like looking for me as a mentor. And I'm glad to help them and things like that.
Yeah.
But I feel like it's like for the services that they're having these people pay for the things that they're saying they're providing, they really like when those kids are lost or falling behind, they're really not stepping up and helping them in the way they promise. And so instead, the thing is, it's like, you know, like these big price tags, they come with a big promise, but just like, you know, I just think that like a lot of these places which can be doing something very similar to course careers, you kind of like go at your own pace. It's gonna be like, oh, you can do it at this point in time. It's like it's gonna be a laid out course on the internet where you're watching some videos and reading things. Like that's pretty much it. In my experience too, that I think that the Discord chat that Troy has with the students who are interviewing and talking to each other is far more educational than the hour and a half group meetings that I've been involved in these other training programs. I've actually been very disappointed, especially when it's like, if they're going through a PowerPoint, it's like, dude, we have that as our homework this week. I'm going to see this week anyways. And so just it's like, man, is this really worth it? And I think that like course careers definitely is worth the money. I mean, it's definitely worth the value. I think that the more people like join course careers and complete the course that are kind of willing to come back and just help out and say hello and provide a couple tidbits and advice and information, just make the program more and more and more valuable. And the thing is, it's just like Troy delivers on the results that he promises. If you're not going to get a full-time position, you're going to get an internship. He's going to help you give those industry terms and things like that. And really, at the end of the day, it's like, you know, I think the value is there. I think the knowledge you need to know being SDR exists as well. And I think just in terms of just the price point for what it is compared to the other academies, which I've seen range anywhere from, I don't know if I've seen anything for less than $5,000 to upwards of $30,000. So you have 10 times to 60 times the amount of what course is going to cost you for like the same knowledge, pretty much. That's pretty much it. And so it's like, I would say definitely Coursera is the best value of all. I say that they say they do one thing, they actually accomplish that mission. I feel like there's a lot less overselling as well, which I really appreciate. It's just kind of like this, we're going to do for you, we're going to help you do, and they do that, and you get those results.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time to do this interview with me, Alex, and I'm sure a whole bunch of students will get a ton of value from it.
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, I would honestly, like, it's one of those things where, like, you know, even if you're not going to go into being a sales development representative or an AE or anything else in sales, I would still say take the course. And I know it's going to sound like almost like an oversell, but it's like take the course because the language and the things you're going to learn from this course, it's going to apply to like almost anywhere else in the software sales industry. And just having that insight and that knowledge will help you, like, even if you want to get to be a sales engineer or working in competitive intelligence, this is kind of a good tip of the iceberg course to take to kind of get you a little more familiarized with the different things you're going to learn and understand those industries to be successful.
Mm-hmm. For sure. Yeah. Well, thanks, Alex.